Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Logan's Voice. If this is your first time listening, I am so glad you're here. If you've been walking with me on this road for a while, welcome back. My name is Doug Ballinger, and I'm Logan's dad. And this podcast was born out of the deepest pain a parent can ever experience, the loss of a child. Logan died in 2020 from fentanyl poisoning, and since that day, I've been on a journey through grief, through rage, through guilt, through silence, and ultimately toward purpose. Each episode of Logan's Voice is my attempt to speak the truth that too many people are too afraid or too ashamed to say out loud. We talk about the poison drug supply. We talk about the stigma and silence. We talk about what it means to survive the death of a child and still find the courage to live. But today we're talking about something life-saving, something that gets overlooked in all the noise and politics and judgment. We're talking about community. This episode is called Healing Happens in Circles, Not Silos. And if I could sit across from you right now, look into your eyes, and offer one message from the bottom of my soul, it would be this: you were never meant to carry this pain alone. Not your grief, not your questions, not your heartbreak, not your shame, not your story, and not your child's story. Healing doesn't happen behind closed doors with the curtains drawn and your phone on silent. It happens when we step into the light, when we let someone sit beside us, not with answers, but with presence. When we realize that our pain, while deeply personal, is also universal. I know what it feels like to suffer in silence. I also know what it feels like to walk into a room full of grieving parents and exhale for the first time in months. So today, I want to talk to you about the power of gathering, about what happens when people who understand, who really understand, come together in circles instead of isolating in silos. This is the kind of episode that could save a life. It might not feel dramatic, but it's everything. Let's talk about community. Let's talk about hope. Let's talk about Logan. Let's start with something raw, something real: the isolation trap. After Logan died, I didn't just lose my son, I lost my footing. I lost the shape of my days. I lost my sense of direction. And almost as painful as the grief was the silence. At first, people showed up with food and flowers, messages poured in. But as the days turned into weeks, the messages slowed down, the calls stopped, the text faded, and the silence took its place. Some people disappeared completely, maybe out of discomfort, maybe out of fear, maybe they didn't know what to say, so they said nothing. And others tried, but stumbled through phrases that hurt more than they helped. And what I felt, what so many grieving parents feel, was this overwhelming sense of aloneness. Even in a crowded room, I felt separate, like the air was thinner around me, like I was walking underwater and the rest of the world was breathing just fine. I want to say something out loud right here for anyone who needs to hear it. Grief isolates and stigma locks the door. When your loved one dies from fentanyl poisoning or overdose, it's not just a death, it's a traumatic death layered with judgment. You hear things like, "Didn't you see the signs? Were they using again? Why didn't they just get help?" Or worse, nothing at all. Just that look, that silence, that shift in energy that tells you they're placing blame somewhere, and it might be on your child or on you. And so what do? We shut down. We stop talking about them. We stop telling stories. We carry the grief alone. We replay the what ifs, and that isolation becomes a cage. But here's the truth I've come to understand, and what I want to speak into the heart of anyone listening. We were never meant to grieve alone. We were never meant to carry this level of pain by ourselves, and we are not the only ones. There are thousands, maybe millions of parents, siblings, grandparents, and friends out there who are walking this same road. Many of them just as afraid to speak, just as broken, just as longing for someone to say, I see you. And the thing is, when you're in a silo, you don't even realize how many others are out there. But the moment you step into a circle, a support group, a shared story, a safe space, that cage begins to open. Your chest loosens. Your voice finds its way back. You remember that love didn't die with your child. It still lives in you. Pain thrives in silence. But healing lives in connection. And that's what I want to explore next. How the circle changes everything. Let's talk about circles of support and the power of community. So, if isolation is the trap, then community is the lifeline. There's something ancient, something sacred about gathering in a circle. It's not just about sitting in a room or logging onto a screen. It's about what happens in between the words. It's in the nod when someone says, my son was 32, and another person quietly replies, mine too. It's in the way tears are met with tissues and silence is met with patience. It's in the collective breath we take together when someone finally says their child's name out loud for the first time in months. It's not just support. That's transformation. That's communion. That's healing. At Hope Movement Coalition, we don't believe in quick fixes. We don't believe grief has an expiration date or that healing follows a neat little timeline. But we do believe in showing up for ourselves and for each other. That's why we hold monthly in-person support meetings in Central Arkansas and Northwest Arkansas where people can hug, cry, laugh, and remember together. And weekly Zoom support groups where distance melts away and real connection happens from kitchen tables, living rooms, parked cars, or wherever someone needs to be. These spaces are specifically for families who've lost a loved one to overdose or fentanyl poisoning, because as much as we all may be grieving, that kind of loss is a little different. It's laced with stigma, misunderstanding, and injustice. It's often sudden, shocking, and preventable. And being in a circle of people who get it, who don't flinch at the words heroin, Narcan, or relapse, is life-altering. In our meetings, we don't whisper our children's name. We say them boldly. We honor who they were, not just how they died. We share stories about their smiles, their jokes, their passions, their struggles, and their humanity. And in doing so, we create a kind of sacred legacy. It's not just about remembering the past. It's about building a future where fewer families have to feel this pain. We've had people drive hours just to be in the room. We've had grandparents who've never used Zoom in their lives join our online group because they needed someone to talk to. We've had parents who said nothing for weeks, then suddenly shared a memory that brought the whole circle to tears. This isn't therapy. This is community. This is what it means to carry each other forward. When one of us is too tired to stand, someone else leans in and says, I've got you. And sometimes that's all we need. There's something incredible that begins to happen when we sit in these circles long enough. At first, we show up just to survive. We walk in, emotionally exhausted, holding back tears, not even sure we belong there. We're not trying to be strong. We're just trying to breathe. But slowly, something shifts. Someone across the circle says something that sounds like your own story. Someone else leans in and remembers your child's name. And one day, you realize that you're not just being held, you're also holding space for someone else. And that right there is where healing deepens. Community doesn't just confront us, it changes us. We go from asking, how do I survive this, to asking, how can I help someone else survive this? We go from silence to storytelling, from isolation to advocacy, and from grief to grit. That's the power of peer led spaces. And that's exactly what we're building with Hope Movement Coalition. This isn't a support group where someone in a white coat tells us how to heal. This is a circle of equals. Every single person in that room has earned their place at the table through heartbreak. And when we serve each other out of that place, something sacred happens. Our pain becomes purpose. Our children's names are woven into action. And our grief becomes a lifeline for someone else just beginning their journey. I've watched moms become mentors. I've seen dads who once sat in silence become speakers. I've seen families channel their sorrow into art, into education, into legislation, into real change. Not because they were over their grief, not because they decided their love was bigger than their pain. That's the heartbreak of the movement. That's why we say we rise together. We don't heal by forgetting. We heal by remembering loudly, publicly, and in a way that helps others survive what we barely did. You may never know the full impact of your voice in a circle, but I promise you it matters. Sometimes just sitting beside someone in grief and saying, "Me too," is the most powerful act of service there is. So if you're sitting in silence today, still wondering what your role is in this, I want to tell you, just keep showing up. Your presence is already the medicine you're needing. And one day, you'll see, it's also your power. And before we close today, I want to tell you about something truly special that's coming up. Something that perfectly captures everything we've talked about this episode. On Saturday, August 23rd, 2025, we'll gather for the 6th annual Bridge the Gap event at Riverfront Park in North Little Rock. This isn't just an event, it's a movement in motion. It's where the grief that brought us to our knees becomes the force that helps others rise. It's where families who have lost children, siblings, parents, and friends stand shoulder to shoulder, breaking the silence, ending the stigma, and demanding change. Bridge the Gap was created to do exactly what the name says, to bridge the gap between grief and hope, stigma and understanding, silence and truth, awareness and action. This year's event will be the largest gathering yet, and you can expect powerful speakers, many of them who've lost loved ones, who've turned their loss into advocacy, resource booths offering support for recovery, harm reduction, grief services, and community healing, memorial spaces to honor those we've lost, including Logan, and so many others whose lives were cut short. And most importantly, a community of people who get it, who show up not just to remember, but to fight for the living and those still struggling with substance use. Whether you've been to every Bridge the Gap or this will be your first, I want you to know there is a place for you. This is your invitation to step out of the silo and into the circle, to stand with families who have walked through the fire and now choose to be the light for someone else. Logan will be with me that day, just like your loved one will be with you. Their names will be spoken, their faces will be seen, and their stories will matter, because we will not let them be forgotten. If you're listening and want to be part of this, whether it's in attendance as a volunteer or a sponsor, visit hopemovementcoalition.com or reach out to me directly at rexlogansdad@gmail.com. Bridge the Gap, 2025 is going to be on August 23rd in North Little Rock Riverfront Park, right by that submarine. Come be part of something powerful. Remember, community is hope. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with the most important truth I've learned in this journey. Healing doesn't happen in isolation, it happens in community. After Logan died, I thought I had to figure it all out on my own. I didn't want to burden anyone else. I didn't know where to turn. But the silence got louder. The grief got heavier, and it wasn't until I sat in a room surrounded by other parents who had lost their children to overdose and fentanyl poisoning that I realized I wasn't alone. And I never really had to be. That's why I believe in Hope Movement Coalition with everything I have. We're not just a nonprofit group. We're a community. We're a family. We're a lifeline for those of us who've had to keep breathing after our world stopped. And maybe you're not in Arkansas. Maybe you can't make it to one of our in-person meetings in Central or Northwest Arkansas, and that's okay. Start where you are. There may be a group near you, a circle you didn't know existed yet, a Zoom room where someone will meet your pain with understanding, not judgment. And if there isn't one, I promise you, we'll still meet you where you are. Our weekly Zoom support group is open to any family member grieving the loss of a loved one to overdose or fentanyl poisoning. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to have it all together. You just have to show up. Because that's where the healing begins. Through Hope Movement or through a group in your own community, you can begin to feel that weight lift, even just a little. You can hear your loved one's name spoken without shame, and you can remember that love is still present, even in the pain. And you'll start to believe again in something that grief tried to take from you. Hope. Community is hope. It's not a luxury, it's a lifeline. And if you're listening today, wondering where to start, here's your sign. Visit HopeMovementCoalition.com or look for support in your own community because it's there. And if you're still unsure, reach out to me at rexlogansdad.com. I'll put a link to that down below. I'll walk beside you. We are not meant to do this alone. And thanks to community, we don't have to. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. And thank you for listening to this episode of Logan's Voice. And most of all, thank you for believing that healing is possible. I'll see you in the circle. I am Logan's voice. I am Logan's dad. And I will not be silent.